Our topic for today is how did Reconstruction work out? So we've discussed how the Reconstruction period started out being controlled by President Johnson and how he wanted to be pretty easy on the South, wanted to make it easy for the southern states to rejoin the Union and just kind of move on. And we've talked about how Congress, led by the radical Republicans, didn't like that plan. Some of them wanted to punish the South. Some of them wanted to make sure that the South was doing more to protect the rights of African Americans. And so Congress takes control of Reconstruction away from President Johnson. So the rules that Congress passes as part of Reconstruction, Congressional Reconstruction, were really tough on the South and made a lot of white Southerners really upset at the government. One of the rules was that all ex-slaves became citizens and they were allowed to vote. But ex-Confederate officials, high-ranking officials, politicians, lost their voting rights. And all Confederate debts and money became worthless. So the money that had been the basis of the Confederate economy was basically nullified, became worthless. Congress and President Johnson argued constantly back and forth with each other over Reconstruction. And long story short, there's a whole backstory, but long story short, Congress gets so fed up with President Johnson and how he's handling things that they actually voted to impeach the president. And his impeachment went to the Senate, where he actually became one vote away from being kicked out of office. And so Congress sort of flexed its muscles and showed President Johnson that they were really, really close to kicking him out of office. Northern troops, the Northern Army, was sent to the South, and they were to stay there until the southern states complied with the rules that Congress put in place. And so in some places, Union troops, Northern troops, stayed in the South until 1877. That's 12 years after the war ended. And despite its name, Reconstruction really didn't actually do much rebuilding. And so the South remained largely in ruins for a while, and the South remained poorer than the North. As you can imagine, people in the South were very resentful about Reconstruction. They weren't happy about it. They felt it was unfair. And they really felt that these rules passed by Congress were unnecessarily cruel towards the South. Reconstruction officially comes to an end when the Northern troops leave the South in 1877. And when that happens, ex-slaves who had some rights, because Congress made the Southern states give them rights, once those Northern troops leave, these ex-slaves begin to lose their rights. Southern states passed laws called Jim Crow laws that segregated or separated blacks and whites in a lot of different ways. In public spaces, different public restrooms, different schools, for example. These laws made it almost impossible for blacks to vote. They did things like charge taxes to vote or require a test to vote. And of course, without an education, most blacks were not able to pass the test or didn't have the money to pay the taxes. So this kept a lot of blacks from voting. There weren't very many schools for former slaves, so they couldn't get the skills that they needed to move up in the world, to get better jobs. And you had groups like the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, that were growing in popularity. And these groups basically just ran a campaign of terror against former slaves and intimidated ex-slaves so that they would not complain. They wouldn't ask for equal rights. They wouldn't try to move up in the social ladder. And so the aftermath of Reconstruction is not a good one for African Americans and former slaves.